DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. They're joined now by RSL head coach Pablo Mastroeni. Pablo, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Pablo, is your relentless optimism being tested? It's been a rough stretch here, and you're a pretty upbeat guy, but I just wonder, if some days you're like, oh.
That's actually a great question. So again, I've being in this profession for quite some time now is your morning routine is everything, right? You got to wake up, you got to meditate, you got to see the sun, you got to walk, you got to get your mind going in the right way, and you got to frame the type of day you're going to have, right? And so it all starts with the mindset in the morning. And then it also comes down to a couple other things. I think sometimes as a coach, you try to take too much on, right? Sometimes you want to be the guy that helps bring players in, help move players on, find ways to get more capital to do what you want to do. At the end of the day, when you strip it down, and what I've come up with is my job is to only work with the players that are in the building, right? And so when you can simplify it, and how do I get 1% to 2%, not of guys that may come, not of guys that may leave, not of potential signings, but work with the players in the building to get 2% to 3% more from everyone and make the whole greater than the sum of its parts. And so when you strip it down like that, it becomes a really easy thing to do. And obviously what happens above me impacts it only if I allow it to impact it, right? So my focus is my focus. And when you do it, and when you think about it in those terms, you can be optimistic because you can control what's in front of you, control the controllables.
How about the staff, too? It's just as the coach, you got the people above you, so be it, they're above you. But everybody else is probably you're going to be above them, so you're in charge of a lot of different people that go beyond the players or the folks who put on the uni.
No, that's absolutely right. And I think the positivity that I come in with every day is critical. And again, I think leadership isn't about the way you feel, right? It's about the way you want others to feel. And so it's a great point, PK, because again, when you're not getting the results, morale is at times waning, and so if I come in heavy, slogging around and thinking about all the things that could be better, I'm not translating the type of energy and emotion we need to get 2% to 3% more from the players, but like you said, from the staff as well. We have a fantastic staff that work so hard and are so motivated to be winners, right? And to achieve something. And so, again, I think it all starts with, myself coming down and making sure that I come in and I have the right type of energy that people can feed off. And if it's good, then we're going to have a positive outcome. And so I'm really deliberate about those aspects of my role, both to the players and the staff when I come into work every single day.
There seems to be a fine line here also, Pablo, in being realistic. You don't want to give people excuses so that they don't push and then they don't get the 2% to 3% better. But at the same time, you can't look at a player and say, well, you ought to play like you're on the national team. That's not realistic. And I heard a lot of complaints about the way RSL set up and what the starting lineup looked like against Club Leon. And mostly I heard it after you lost. Now, there isn't a lot of time to complain before, but I'm like, those are some hard decisions. When you see a player as talented and as athletic as the guy that they had running up and down the left side, and then you're like, do you really want to put a defender in his 30s who's experienced and veteran and tough, but that's going to be a lot of sprints in space? Is that really fair to ask that? But also you got a guy who's pretty athletic in his early 20s, and you're like, that's a big ask because he doesn't have the veteran savvy and athletically maybe matches up. And it's like the perfect answer isn't there. The best answer is Justin Gladden. He's not in the building and on the bench. You can't put him out there. And now you're moving pieces around and trying to make the next best decision. I wonder how much that drags you down and how much you have to talk to players about the expectations. Expect a lot from yourself.
I think those are all points. And again, at the end of the day, this is what I spend my livelihood doing, right, is assessing these type of moments, obviously with the staff and making these decisions. The layman sports fan obviously has 1% of the information, and they have opinions, right? I have 100% of the information, and I have to make decisions. Right. And there's a big difference in that. Right. So like you said, after the game, you question everything. It's right. Yeah. But there's so many layers that go into these decision makings. And a big part of that, too, DJ, was having 9 games in 30 days, which is unprecedented, right? So we're not just like, nobody knows the load of any player here, right? They're just assuming that every player is a 10 out of 10 and you're moving magnets. This is not real life, right? So that's why we're here as a staff, to make these decisions, to make the best decisions for the team, to know that from a tactical perspective, from a physical load perspective, from a connection with your teammate perspective, with the form perspective, with the environment perspective. I mean, there's so many variables that go into it. It'd be so naive just to say, like, this guy's the best because he's the best. No, it's not how it works, right? Every player has basically a 3 to 10 range, 10 being the best, and 10 being the best means tactically, technically, physically, emotionally, spiritually, he's a 10. And very few players play from that space once the season gets started. So now you're operating from like a 3 to an 8, right? Because of wear and tear and the grind of the season. And so that's, and so the part of, like, you're not a national team player, but you need to play to it. I think, my only reservations with that is that's the only way to get to the national team, is to believe that you're that kind of player, right? So Gozo goes from an academy player to potentially being on the World Cup roster. If Gozo didn't believe that he was capable of doing that, he would have never, his trajectory wouldn't have been as sharp as it has to the upside. So there's reality, but I think we as humans have the ability to affect reality, right? Because the people that end up doing great things have to have visions of grandeur. It can't happen thinking I'm just going to clock in every day and work a 9-to-5 job. You've got to believe that you can reach that level. And in doing so, you train that way, you eat that way, you live that way. And before you know it, you're in the Premier League, right? So there's a lot of things going into it, and that's the beauty of sport, is that you're taking, there's so many, it's not just coming out and training every day. You're trying to reframe the psychology of the group, reframe the emotional stability of the group, motivate the group, get them believing that they are better than what they currently are. And then how you put that all together to get a good performance at the weekend that provides an opportunity for 3 points is the ultimate task.
Yeah, I think the world is full of front runners, and when things are going well, great, everyone's happy and all that. But that's so easy. It's not easy to be great, but it's easy to be a front runner. I look at what are you doing when things aren't going your way. When I was growing up, I wanted to play third base for the Dodgers, and I got to my junior year in high school, and I was on the team, but it was apparent I'm not even going to play third base for the local tiddlywink team out of high school, right? And I thought, okay, but I still want to be in sports. I couldn't imagine not having a job in sports. So how do I go about it, right? And I go to college and blah, blah, do all the stuff that I do. Start at the Casa Grande Dispatch, the newspaper there, and I just work my butt off and get to where I want to go. And I've always believed if you work your butt off, that opportunities create themselves. So whether you guys have won every game or you've lost every game, the work ethic is going to determine what the future is. And it's simply, that's what you have to do. You have to work as hard as you can.
That's right. PK, that's, and that's what, I came in this morning just buzzing, and just being really clear about what our task is. It's, again, because oftentimes you get caught up in this world of like, man, we lost the player to the Prem, we haven't replaced him, right? And so obviously the team's going to change, right? The team has to change. Yeah. Just the laws of the universe will say, if you take out, Michael Jordan from a group, it's going to change the dynamic of the team.
Right.
Now, our jobs as coaches is to find now our new identity, and obviously that's going to take a little bit of time, but it shouldn't take away from our energy and effort. And that's why I'm saying when you condense the scope of responsibility, right? We don't have any money down here to bring anyone in. We don't have scouting networks down here to bring anybody in. But what we do have is a great coaching staff and great ideas. And that's where we should put 100% of our energy. The other stuff, there's other people in the club that are qualified to do that. But that shouldn't take away from our energy on what we can control. And it's really interesting because oftentimes as coaches and parents to children as well, right? The advice that you give to them, oftentimes you should be heeding yourself, right? that's the advice, is control the controllables. And so what is our controllable is, to your point, work our tails off. And if we as coaches are the example of what that looks like, there's no doubt the players are going to follow, because we have some fantastic players that are hungry for an opportunity. So just always trying to spin it in a positive light when things are tough, and make sure that we go back to simplifying our roles and our tasks to get 1 or 2% more from every individual.
So to that point about you got to change the way you play, Pablo, when you had Xavier Gozo, to use the NFL analogies that you use so often, I am stunned by that, because most soccer people don't, but you love a good NFL analogy. When a defender came up on Gozo, you were the quarterback throwing deep, playing behind, hit over the top, let him have his speed, run down the line, get on that ball. That was the attack. And when they started dropping off him because they realized you couldn't keep up with him, you just played the ball right to his feet, and then you let him run at people and beat him, and it created advantages. With that gone now?
Correct.
A lot of people are thinking, well, Morgan Giavogi, he's getting paid big time. He needs more goals, more assists. And you've talked about you want him to be more selfish. He's such a great teammate. He's got 7 assists, but only has 2 goals. He needs to shoot more. Now, I'm watching this last game. He's standing on the sideline with his back to the sideline, and he's not more than 2 feet from the sideline. Then you can't score from there. But he did it. And we also saw Diego Luna do it. And they routinely got the ball, and they were driving between the defense and the midfielders, kind of parallel to the goal. And sometimes unleash a shot, sometimes tried to slide a ball through to Salons, or maybe someone making a deep line run. Are we going to see a lot more of that? Is that you adjusting the offense on the fly without really having many training sessions to do it with, because you're playing so often? Is that new tactics going forward?
So, again, I think the most important thing is that they're receiving the ball behind the midfield line, right? That's really the crux of the tactic. If we want our 10s to be dangerous, we don't want them receiving it in front of their midfield line, because now they have to break a line to get to where they need to be positionally to be effective in front of goal. And what I'll say in that last game, which is really interesting just watching it back, is we had an opportunity to score probably 3 goals in the first half, right? And if we score any one of those 3 goals, and 2 of them slid across the whole back line, and that's where our right wing back should be, and that was Gozo. So there's no doubt, if we had, even Zach Booth, right, who's been now out for 8 weeks. So there's some injury things as well. But like, if that player in said position understood the position really, really well, they're 2 tap-ins on the back post, because that's where they're meant to frame the back post anytime we get in that part of the field. And those are tap-ins, right? But we didn't do that. And then Serge had a couple chances. And so that game can easily be 1 or 2-0 going into the break. But it wasn't. So it's not like we're far away, but it's just trying to really solidify what that right wing back position looks like. So we've tried Dom, we've tried DeAndre, and we've tried Saba, right? And all 3 are kind of like mixed as far as performances are concerned. There's some good stuff and some stuff that, but we're not. You can put all 3 together and you're still not getting the Gozo, right? So, going away from home, we might look at it a little bit differently based upon the aspects of those 3 individuals to see how we go. The other thing that we've been talking internally as a staff is maybe we have to change our shape. I don't want to jump the gun on that, but how do we put, if we do have Saba and he's more of a winger, how do we put him in a position to be more successful if this is, if we don't have that? So there's a couple things that we're looking at. And like you rightly pointed out, we haven't had time to train in the last 6 weeks. So you can't just throw a new formation out there and expect the guys to get it. And what often happens if you do that, you're going to have paralysis by analysis. And now you're not playing from the flow state, and it becomes chaos. And then you don't get any gains from your previous setup. And if you try to go back to your previous tactical setup, now there's no confidence in it because you just switched it. So we have some things that we're working on internally. But like I said earlier, all these things take time. When you take a big fish out of your rotation, it's impossible for not to take time. And I get it. We want to win now. So do I, right? I go home and I'm bummed out every game we don't win. But again, I go back to process and go, be realistic, Pablo. Whether anyone else in the world believes that it takes time, that it does. And so stay true to what you believe. It's going to take some time, but we're going to get it right because we have good people in the building, and we have guys that are willing to learn and willing to work and willing to get better. So I have no doubt that we'll find our footing soon. But it all starts with mindset, and it starts with belief. And this weekend in particular, one aspect that I've seen in the last couple of games is if you're not going to score the goals, how committed are we to the defensive side of the ball, right? What's our reactions look like when the ball turns over? Do arms go up in the air? Is there a hesitation to react the right way? And if that's there, which it has been, it's not good enough, right? We need to have great reactions. We have to be a transition team that responds really well when things don't go our way. And then defensively, we just got to win more duels. We got to be hungry defensively. And so those are the 2 points that I made yesterday to the group and saying these are 2 non-negotiables moving forward. Regardless of how many goals we score, we've got to be the toughest team to play against and get back that part of our DNA to make sure that whilst we might have trouble scoring goals, but we're making sure everyone is doing what they can to keep our opponents off the board.
So when you talk about missing these chances and then something may go wrong, is it a situation where you're trying to drill into these guys, hey, stop feeling sorry for yourself, we've got to play through whatever happens?
Yeah, that's exactly right, PK. And oftentimes when you say it like that, it doesn't really resonate as much, right? And so how do I say that same thing is, listen, we're in a tough spot, right? That's out of our control. But what is in our control is how we respond to adversity as a group.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that that is it. And it's just framing it in a way where, the guys don't feel like it's just me talking to them, but it's really all of us in the same boat, coaches and players alike. And I think that's one thing that we got away from yesterday's presentation is, again, me being vulnerable as a coach and saying, hey, listen, I feel the same way you guys do. And the onus is on all of us in this room to really pick it up 1% and 2%. And if one of us don't, and that's coaches and players alike, then we're going to be left feeling sorry for ourselves. And so how do we affect that? It's by controlling what we can and having great reactions and working really, really hard for the player next to you. And I think that is a foundational piece to any great team.
There were people, and I don't know if you saw the Apple broadcast or not, but you're on the sideline. They took cutaways on the broadcast, and you see some of the faces. And fans want players to take losses hard, right? So that's actually usually a positive. But I had genuine concern from people like Diego Luna looked way down. Okay, well, that's one snapshot. It's a couple cutaways, and, how was he 90 minutes after the game? We don't know because TV cameras are off. So how did he take that? I mean, you want people to take losses hard, but you want them to take them losses hard in a way that they come back with more energy and determination in the next game. So how is he? I know you focus on this kind of stuff a lot, players' mentalities.
Yeah, so listen, I think, again, Diego's a competitor, right? Yeah. Diego's a competitor. And, when he comes out of games, he's always going to be upset, right? And so a lot of that is probably towards himself, like his performance. And he knows that, he could have done more. But the other thing that a lot of people may not know is that he was cramping. And so if you're cramping and you're going for it, you can't be cramping. Like you need 100%. You need to be good physically to be able to produce technically and tactically, right? These are things that are fundamental to being a good attacking player because the spaces that you're working into are tight spaces. And if you can't bounce off your calves, your calves become critical muscle components to Diego's game in particular, where he's doing step overs and dropping shoulders. And so when I think he was upset at himself because he was cramping, obviously upset that he got taken out of the game and couldn't express himself the way he would. And so I think as pros, like everyone digests moments differently, right? And there's not one player. You'll never see a player, DJ, coming out of the game smiling. I'll tell you that. And if they do, they're in the wrong profession. These guys are all hard on themselves. And so whatever any fan says about said player, it multiply that times 1,000,000, and that's how the player feels, right? Because he's a competitor and he wants to be great. And so I think, obviously when you're not getting the results, you're going to see a lot of sad faces, a lot of upset faces, a lot of faces that want, and I think it's important to have those feelings because it's those feelings that you want to make sure you don't feel again, right? So that's actually a motivational tactic subconsciously to make sure that the next week in training, the next game I get, that I'm going to be performing at a level that's not so that I don't feel those same feelings, so that I don't get cramps, so that I don't come out of games, so that I can perform at the level that I'm doing. So I think it's a natural thing. I never look into any of that stuff. You know, I used to, as a young coach, get really upset when players would make a scene when they'd come out of games. And then I realized that it's not about me, right? They might think that it's me they're upset with, but I was a player as well. And when I got taken out of games, I understood why. Whether it was a tactical reason and they didn't need to put in another attacking player, whether my performance wasn't good on the day, whether I started to fatigue, right? There's so many layers to this thing. And, you know, and then after every game, the guys always come up and say, hey, Pablo, listen, I apologize the way I walked off the field. It wasn't towards you. And I'm like, you get it, no problem. No need to apologize, bud. Like, you know, and regardless of what the reaction's like, they can't come back into the game anyways, right? Yeah. So it's one of these really interesting conundrums when you're coming off. So, but it's the beauty of sport. The emotion piece is great, and if you don't have these lows, then you wouldn't experience the great highs that you do when you're winning and when things are going good and when you're working hard for your teammate. So it's like you can't have night if you don't have day. You know, so it's a part of life. It's a part of the game, and now the onus is on us to you know, lock arms and really dig deep and ask some maybe existential questions about ourselves and go for it, man. And so again, my whole mindset is control what I can, and that's the guys that we have in the building, at the club, in this moment, and for the players to do the same. Control what they can, the way they prepare, the way they execute, and the way they recover. And if we can do those things, I think we'll find a way to a positive side of things.
I think the thing that has really impacted, I wonder how many times you've been through this in your career, because obviously as we talked, you know, you draw on so many things, right, that you've already been through. How many times have you been through a situation where, whether you're playing or coaching, where you're missing 20% of the roster? And not just any 20% of the roster. You're missing 6 out of the 30 guys. 3 I would have absolutely penciled in as starters at the very beginning of the year, and 3 more have proven to be useful subs. And some of those guys, a couple of them, they were pretty off the radar. You know, I don't think I expected Griffin Dillon or Zach Booth to play a big role, but they've proven to be useful, and now they're hurt for a significant period of time. Have you been through something like this, being down 20% of the roster?
I don't think I've been through this type. And again, I think it has a lot to do with the amount of games that we've played, right, as well. And, you know, Jay Glad, Emeka has been a miss all season long. But the one thing is, again, if you focus on those things, DJ, and you start to get this poor me mindset, you start going down a rabbit hole. You know, it's crazy how the human psyche always wants to turn to the negative. And so that's why I'm so deliberate about the work that I do every morning when I wake up to frame it in a positive way. And then the crazy thing is when you start framing it in a positive way, you start seeing guys in training that are actually who have been training worthy of an opportunity, and they get it. And now we have the next Noel Caliskin. We have the next Zach Booth. We have the next Dylan Griffin. You know, so the next Luka Moisa. So with all of it, if you spin it the right way, because you can choose to see light or dark, the choice is yours. And I've got to work extra hard at seeing the light at all times, because that's what I'm tasked with, to come in and be the leader of a group with positive energy that is also evolving as a coach, that is also, you know, showing emotions when things aren't going well, but come in the next day and be positive and say, here's the solution, guys. If we do these 2 things right, I promise you, we will put ourselves in a position to win the next game. And that's my focus.
Pablo, we love it as always. Thanks for joining us. Colorado Saturday night. We're looking forward to the game. Thank you.
Let's go.